This last weekend we went on a bachelor party to Sherwood Forest Fair. It's a Renaissance festival. Happens every year for the last 10 years. It's one of two big ones here in the state. Last year was my first time going with two of my friends. And that's where I met Klaus. I love music of all sorts, especially skillful instrumentation. I really enjoy jazz and fingerstyle guitar, which has a special place in my heart. My first music video that I did here in Austin was for a fingerstyle guitarist. I just love how it's a tangible and audible representation of hours and hours and years of practice. So needless to say, last year, whenever I'm wandering around this place for the first time, and I came across this mystical figure, dude with white beard and white hair, dark under eyes, in his 70s probably, dressed in shiny silk motley garb, playing an 8-string what looks like a lute, but it's actually a double-string guitar 8 times, and just jamming, just absolutely getting it. I needed to stop and check it out. And it was cool to watch because he would just play whatever came to his head. Even whenever he thought that he messed up and he would laugh it off and keep on going, it still sounded way good. So I take a picture of his sign, Klaus Weiland and his magical guitar. And he stops everything that he's doing. And his first words that he says to me, "Don't you dare download this shit on Spotify." But see, curiosity prevailed and I did it anyway. And I'm glad that I did. Because after searching for some of his music, I realized just who I was talking to. This guy, Klaus Weiland, is a legend, half a world away. This is a man who's lived. This is the closest thing to an actual bard that I've probably ever met. He was born in 1947 in Germany to a refugee fleeing the Russian army. And he was born in a former death camp, which is something that he attributes to having a lifetime of pacifism. He moves to England whenever he's 3 years old, grows up as an English schoolboy with a very German name, starts playing guitar whenever he's 17, just in time for his family to move back to Germany and him to get drafted. His status as a quote-unquote conscientious objector was actually honored, and they gave him a farewell concert and all that sort of stuff. He then goes to university in Freiburg, linguistics department. Immediately before him and his then creative partner, soon-to-be manager, would hand-build a guitar called the Dado One. Coming back from England into Germany, he meets a hero of his, Hans Wader. Fühle ich mich heute nicht mehr wohl. Essentially, German Bob Dylan. This guy's a hugely influential leftist artist in Germany at the time, and even in South America and around the world. All of his songs had to do with anti-communism and anti-war and all that stuff. But he's more taken creatively with his then backup guitarist, Werner Lammerhirt. I'm sorry for butchering all of this German. Somebody he calls the father of the German groove. Now we've got the motion with lives floating by. He makes friends with these guys, and he's pulled out of his apparent university career into music. This is a quote from his biography on his website. Hans took me under his wing, introducing me to most of the top artists of the then blossoming German folk scene, and I was often flying. In fact, the very first festival I ever attended, I was one of the headliners. But as somebody who's traveled a lot in his youth and has had brushes with the actual political climate, he soon grows discontent with all this. After 3 CDs collaborating with these guys and establishing himself as one of the founding German folk dudes, like the top guy, TV interviews and journalists and this and that, it's good for his ego, but apparently not for his life. All of his friends are telling him he's changed by this point. Quote from his biography. In retrospect, alone, the pretentious Dadaism of the name of my single, The Hole in the Banana, should have been a clue. So at this point, he starts the rest of his life. He gives everything away, his entire back catalog and all of his recordings and all that stuff. He gives to the guy that was then running the Freiburg Folk and Blues Club. All of his friends in the music scene are like, "What are you doing?" Because him and his brother get into a Volkswagen bus and just start this overland trip around the world, going from Germany to India, just because they wanted to see it, and you can drive it. Weeks and weeks and weeks of journeys. He even told me about the time that they tried to cross the Khyber Pass, and the way they got through without getting shot at was by offering everybody coffee. Meanwhile, back in Germany, the sudden disappearance of this guy that was already at the top of the ranks solidified him as a legend. And he still is. Klaus Weiland. legendary guitarist. But after going all the way around the world and meeting his wife who runs the medieval moccasin shop and settling down and being the father of a grown daughter and many voyages here, there, and everywhere to Asia and Central America and all of this other stuff, he ends up in Texas, of all places. He's still playing music and still wondering why he's such a fortunate guy. Which brings me back to this year. I knew he was going to be there again. We talked and chatted, and I was like, I would love to shoot you. I would love to interview you. You're a legend. After finding out all of this, I'm a huge fan. I produced 2 microphones, and I asked if he'd like to be interviewed for this video. And he shakes his head, and he says, I just want to play. And he was excited. He was excited about being recorded, but he was more excited about having his music recorded. And he said, when I play, I become a guitar.
Talk to me just imagining you're going to get the kind of response a guitar.
And so he sits down, and I set up my little field recorder right there, and this is in the middle of this huge Ren fair with everything happening all around us. And he just jams. He just plays one finger stuff, puts a 1-second delay on his amp, and just... It's amazing, and I'm enthralled, and I shoot him for half an hour. And as he's playing and I'm shooting him for 30 minutes in the middle of this Ren fair, in the middle of life, this unassuming old man just jamming, I realize that greatness is everywhere. Everywhere you turn, there's a master of their craft. We just have to find it, and we just have to appreciate it.
Give me an ending riff.
That was it.
Okay,
That was the ending
It
riff.
just keeps going. I love it.
If you're working on being a musician or an artist of any kind or a creative, keep after it, please. I insist. And I'm going to try to do better myself. I'm sorry that the last 2 weeks I didn't release anything. It turns out that the previous video that I was going to be doing turns out to be a ton more work. I'll be better about it in the weeks to come. In the meantime, stay rad, stay tuned, and I love you.